Hello, I'm Isaac. This is my presentation on the Martyrs of Japan, the Christian martyrs of Japan, and around the year 1600. Let's begin. So, in order to understand the reason why the martyrs were killed, we have to go through a bit of a brief history of Japan. So, from the years 1477 to 1573, was the Sengoku era of Japan, and it's where feudal lords called daimyo were all fighting over power for Japan. And there was a lot of violence, and this was also the time where Christianity was first introduced to Japan by the Portuguese. Then the second part is the Azuchi Momoyama period, which is where a clan called the Oda was first gaining large power in Japan, and it was during this period where the first bans on Christianity were enacted, and there were around 30 executions during the period as well. And it occurred from 1573 to 1603. And then the third part is the Edo period, which is the final period I'm going to be talking about, and this is the period where the majority of the executions in Japan happened. It's where the Tokugawa clan swiftly took control over the country, and there was, for the first time, a strong centralized government and peace inside the country. So there was a lot of economic prosperity and whole one national identity as a whole, as opposed to clans and smaller things like that. But like I said, during this period was when a lot of the bans on Christianity and were taken to the next level. It was at its peak. So just as a bit of a review, in the Azuchi Momoyama period, there were the first bans on Christianity, and at first it was just you weren't allowed to practice the faith, or you had to leave. And some people stayed in Japan, but tried to, hidden practice their faith, but a lot left as well. But that was just a small little hint at what was to come for Christians. And later there would be the 26 martyrs of Nagasaki. And later in the Edo period, Tokugawa had the Decree of 1614, which was the legal next step in prosecution of Christians that allowed for anyone found to be practicing the faith to be executed, tortured, and killed and imprisoned. And it was really the climax of Christian prosecution in Japan. Overall, it was just the act that was the result of all the lead up. And the part of the lead up is why, and it was about fear of foreign influence and colonization. In the Philippines, during the same time period, the Spanish would convert a lot of the Philippines to Christianity, and then soon after there was colonization and taking over and wars in the Philippines. And the Japanese saw this, and they wanted to avoid this same outcome for themselves, and during the Edo period especially, with their newfound national identity and economic prosperity, they did not want to risk this new unification that they had. So out of fear and pride, they killed roughly 200 martyrs of Japan. And I don't know the actual number, but I know a lot of people in Japan did practice the religion, and I'm sure there was a lot more people than just that killed. But overall, in summary, the main reasons for this was because of a strong pride in Japan, but countering that, a strong fear of Christians and foreign influence. And this is a thing that parallels with a lot of other genocides, just like in the Holocaust. A strong pride in one's own country, but a fear of the foreign influence, or in the case of the Holocaust, the influence of Jews, because they believed they had a control on their society. So it's a mix between fear and pride, which are two very strong thoughts in one's brain that leads to very intense radicalization. And it's that I think even in America we've had moments like that, like with the Red Scare, where we had a very intense fear of communists, but also a very intense pride in our country. And that led for things to get taken too far, people being blamed who didn't have to be blamed. Happened during World War II with internment camps of Japanese, where we feared if they were spies, and we also had, again, World War II pride in America, and that led to some pretty awful stuff happening to the Japanese Americans. But I just think it's important to recognize those two things, and if, as a society, we can recognize this, we can move forward with more deepened view that will allow us to lessen the risk of things like this happening ever again. So, that's all. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. Also, I'm working on that wedding. You're going to have to be the funeral singer, Miss Hamilton.